Okay, are we ready to go? Get a thumbs up from the host at the bottom if we're ready to rock and roll here.
We'll give it a couple minutes here.
Okay, all right.
We are recording.
Right on. Yes, Bruce, we're having a lot of fun already. Somebody doesn't drink coffee down below, but I certainly am one of the ones that do.
Yeah, I've had my lovely large size French press at home, and that was lovely.
Anybody else in the webinar meeting right now that would like to tell us how they're doing in the chat window? You're more than welcome to. Hey, Lori. Good to hear you.
Lori.
Hey, Steve. So it's 11 o'clock right now. Let's wait another 60 seconds and then we'll get kicked off. Hey, Ray, how's it going?
Ray.
How do we get going? Let's get going. Okay, well, the title of today's presentation is Leveraging Modern Phone Systems for Remote Work. It's a good time to be doing a webinar like this. I think one of the things we've noticed as a business is all the remote needs we've had since our office has gone completely remote. Everybody's working out of their basement suite, with the exception of Wim there. You can see he's still in the office. But it's definitely a timely thing in the middle of COVID, in the middle of needing to amp up our game in terms of working remote. So we wanted to bring this to you of things we've found in working in this tech world and with modern phone systems. So yeah, next slide. Who's doing the slides there, guys?
Sorry, there are videos in front of it. Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Okay, so who is this for? So we identified three kind of key people this might be for, and if you're not one of these people, that's okay. You're welcome to stay and contribute. But here are the three that we thought would be the key ones here. So maybe you're already using 3CX. Maybe you're using a modern phone system. You're even happy with 3CX, and you just want to know a little bit more about sort of the features that are included in the soft phone, or how to integrate it with your workflows. You're definitely welcome to be here. You're going to learn a lot today. Maybe you're using an older system like Nortel, Panasonic, or you got a bunch of old Cisco phones, and you're thinking to yourself, boy, it's really time to modernize, to redo that part of my business, to get with the times, get with 2020. Or maybe you've recently gone through a switch. You're happy with a similar system. Maybe you're on free PBX or something like that, and you're just wondering what if that's optimized for your use, and if your team's getting the most out of it. So maybe you're one of those three people. If not, then you're welcome to stay as well. Go ahead, Wim. Top three things you learn, plus lots more, of course. So these are the top three: how to work from anywhere on any device, and how to keep productive and professional in a sense while doing that. And learn a little bit more about the bigger picture of voice over internet protocol, or VoIP as they call it in the industry, and how it all fits together with related technologies like Zoom, Teams, ones you've heard a lot about and you probably use on a daily basis already. And finally, how to improve both your customers and your team's experience. That's both equally important in the in day-to-day business. So how the customer how you portray yourself to the customer, and how your team is enjoying working with the tools. Next slide. So before we start, some things to think about as we go into the content today. What experience do you want to give your callers when they call your business? As I mentioned in the last slide, it's very important to maintain professionalism and to give your clients the best experience they can have, even while working remotely, or even if you're camping and you have your cell phone on you or something like that, and a client calls, you still want to give them a good experience. In your current system, maybe you have that mindset, that's the way it's always been done. And why rock the boat? Why fix it if it ain't broken? Well, we're here to tell you that there's definitely ways to improve, and sometimes it's just about learning a little bit more to see what how the old way isn't always the best way. And finally, would it help anyone if they could easily see who's on the phone and who they're talking to? One of the limitations to cell phones is you're kind of at the mercy of a voicemail, or you maybe don't know if someone's available. Well, we're going to show you some of the kind of the cool things that modern phone systems can leverage and keep you all connected at all times. Next slide. If you have any questions, I see a lot of people have already posted in the chat on the side there. Feel free to keep posting them there. We may not get to them right away, but we're going to be constantly scanning and checking throughout the presentation. So we're going to be making sure your questions get answered. Without further ado, Wim's going to be running most of the content. So handing it over to you, Wim. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. So yeah, a lot of content to go through. Go through as quick as we can here, and respect everyone's time. And the goal is to be educational. This is not a sales pitch, and we're going to speak mostly about a system we use with our clients called 3CX. But a lot of this will apply to other phone systems as well. So it's just good education around some of the terminology and what's possible with whatever system you're using. So I just want to start with the context of the bigger picture, which is with 3CX, the typical deployment would be some server on site. So I've seen the purple device on the right here called the 3CX on-premise server, which you connect your phones to. So in the very bottom right, you see a good old office phone that would be on somebody's desk. It could be your computer, or if you look further to the left, through the internet, you'll see it could be an iPhone, an Android device, could be somebody's home computer, or even a desk phone and somebody's home office. So the idea is anybody, anywhere can be on the phone system. A customer can call, or a patient or a client can call in, and can be answered by anybody, and the caller has no idea where they are. So super powerful that way. So we'll unpack this a bit more coming up. So just want to explain why are we a 3CX partner? And the story there is we took on a client about 5-6 years ago, and they had this 3CX software for their phones, and they loved it. So we're like, well, so we took on support, and I'm like, how do we do the license renewals? And so we became a partner. And we're like, hey, this is actually pretty good. And we became a partner as well. And we're actually using it ourselves now as well. And so we used to use another system called FreePBX, which is a Linux-based thing. We found it wasn't reliable. It would break, and it needed like a Linux expert to like set up a phone. And we're like, that's ridiculous. We need something really easy. So that's why we're using 3CX. So yeah, I want to share some stories and experiences. Yeah, Daniel, what's this purple box on the left?
Okay, so the purple box on the left here is an NEC system. A previous client was using this as their primary phone system, and quite frankly still are. They came to us. They were looking to expand their phone system without paying a great deal to their existing vendor. We were able to patch a 3CX system into their NEC system and essentially extend their phone system using 3CX in a simple and viable way that they were quite happy with.
Yeah, and that saved them a lot of money, because a replacement on their NEC could be like $30,000, $40,000. So for a few $1,000s, we could extend the life of that system. Yep.
So the middle image here represents call flow, specifically through an IVR. IVRs are common in all types of phone systems, whether it's VoIP or digital. But 3CX makes it very simple to set up an IVR, very simple to step through the different stages of an IVR, and it allows you to make the choices of whether or not you want a live person answering, or you want a schedule system. And the third one, everyone who's gone to school in Canada recognizes that as just your standard in the ceiling speaker for overhead announcements or paging. 3CX with 3CX uses a third-party tool called a SNOM to deliver a PA system, and we've successfully implemented it in both a private school and a couple of retail vendors that we work with. Dawn's asking what an IVR is. So just quickly, an IVR is an auto attendant. It's essentially a computer that answers the phone for you. And yeah, interactive voice response. Next slide. So 3CX offers a lot of opportunities for remote work. It's the web client, the desktop client, your mobile app. Essentially, it gives you access anywhere from any device that you own. You can see at a glance your own office network, who's in, who's out. You can chat with people. You can do video conferencing, web conferencing. Essentially, the whole gambit, and it's available remotely just as easily as it is in the office, making it a brilliantly simple solution. Next.
Yeah, so you can just see the screenshot on the device there where you can hold, you can transfer, there's a keypad, you can mute, all those things just like you would on your desk phone. So
yep.
Just using an app.
In the app, there's a number of different views available to you depending on your permissions. The receptionist view here would be what your receptionist would see. It allows you to see at a glance what the condition of everybody is, whether they're on the phone, which is yellow, whether they're available, green, whether or not they actually have a active device. The gray extensions are currently extensions that do not have an active device, and red extensions are ones that are specifically set to do not disturb, so you know that that person's not available. There's a couple other views which we might get into a little later, manager and dashboard views, which are good for call centers and people who want to be able to interrupt a phone call with more information, or be able to whisper to the person on the phone to give them an answer that perhaps they don't have right away. So video and screen sharing. Video calls in 3CX, similar to video calls with WebEx or Skype or anything like that. You see my wonderful home office there with a great image of me. It's straightforward, easy to start between two people using a client, whether you're using the soft client or the web app. Both those support the video conferencing or video calls. It's just a matter of dialing another extension and hitting the video button.
Yeah. And there are physical phones as well you can have on your desk that have a video screen. We haven't tested it because if you got a computer, then why would you use that? But if you prefer, you can definitely do that as well.
The chat, as Wim has referred to it, it's not Slack. It's more like the old MSN Messenger, but it is a functional chat that allows you to communicate with other extensions or other 3CX users. So you can actually, if you're on a call with someone who's using 3CX, you can actually open a chat with them as well, which makes it very nice, if somewhat limited in its versatility compared to some other applications.
Yeah, so you can, through the app, you can see who's on the phone and you can chat with them and say, hey, how's it going? Or are you stuck? Or I got another call for you. Do you want to take it? Or what should I tell them? You can just be right in there, see what people are doing, who they're talking to, and chat. So about that. Yeah, cool. Wallboard.
So this here is a wallboard. It basically gives the statistics for queues. If you're using call queues for call centers and that, this allows your call attendants to see how much time they're spending on the phone, how many calls they've answered, how many abandoned calls have been in their queue, like calls that were not answered. These statistics are really important for SLAs and that in call centers. For most of the people that we've set up phone systems for, this particular usage of 3CX is not widely implemented, but it is available for people who do want to set up a call center style queue.
And that could start with even just one or two users. If you're just getting a lot of call volume and you have callers needing to wait, and you might have 2, 3, 4 or more people stacked up waiting on hold, this is a great way to manage that. So it's a first in, first out kind of call queue.
So voicemail, there's a couple of different options for voicemail. If you have the soft phone installed on your computer, you can play voicemail right from the soft phone to your computer. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that you can also get voicemail directly to your email. Can someone switch to the next slide?
Yep.
Awesome. And it comes as a wave attachment that will play. This is handy for on a cell phone where you don't have the 3CX app installed, because you can just open it in your email and play it directly on the built-in audio player in your mobile phone without calling into the system and checking your voicemail. And of course, on the 3CX app itself, you get the same functionality as you do on the desk app.
Yep. And then another cool thing you can optionally turn on is transcription. So it basically uses the Google Cloud to take the audio, convert it to text. You can just read it without having to play that message. Very cool.
So this is the basic 3CX interface. One of the things that I love about 3CX, and one of the reasons that we as a company adopted it, as Wim will agree to, managing the system is easy. You can teach almost anyone to manage the 3CX environment quite quickly and with minimal effort and with minimal problems. Setting up extensions, setting up groups and ring groups, even setting up your IVR can all be done by someone with relatively minimal knowledge of the back end. So you just basically have to know what you want to do, not necessarily how it's done underneath.
Where's my next?
This is an example of the provisioning email that's provided by 3CX when you set up an extension. There's only two things actually required to set up an extension: a username and an email address. And so once you hit the OK, it emails this person the email. Inside this email, you got a getting started guide, a provisioning configuration for soft phone, and a QR for setting up your mobile device. So basically, it hits all three simultaneously: your desk phone, your regular phone if they've programmed one for you, and your mobile app.
Yep. So yeah, really easy to set up without having to type in settings and passwords and codes and IP addresses. Really, really easy. So, sorry, just going to interrupt. I got a question from Lori here about if your calendar has a meeting, let's say you're in a scheduled phone call or in some other meeting, will your call stop coming in? And the answer is yes, you can synchronize your Microsoft Exchange calendar to 3CX, and it will put you on Do Not Disturb, essentially, when there's a call. Yeah. So I believe that's an option you may have to turn on, and definitely our support team can help with that. Is that right, Daniel?
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
I haven't used that myself. I don't have a lot of calls myself. I'm more online, so.
Yeah, the rest of us aren't allowed to put our phones on Do Not Disturb. So this here is the web app, and in particular, this is actually the management switchboard. So there's a lot of powerful features available for management. If someone's on a call and it looks like they're having problems with that call, you can barge in. You can actually just quietly listen in on the call, or as I said earlier, you can whisper to the person. So if they're having trouble with someone on the phone, that person looks like they're getting heated, you could just whisper in, say, "Hey, relax, do you want me to take this call?" And then you can just barge in, or they can transfer the call out to you. It's a really handy tool, especially if you are in a call center environment or if you're in a very stressful environment. 3CX supports a number of phones: Polycom, Cisco, Yalink. Yalink is the preferred one for 3CX. Astra phones, pretty much anything that is a SIP protocol phone can be connected to a 3CX environment with varying degrees of success. So modern phones like Polycoms or Yalinks and Cisco phones work great. But other phones, older Astra phones and that, will still function as a phone.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. Yeah, a question from Bruce about I'm not using my headset. Yeah, I do have I'll show this here. I do have my $400 Jabra headset, which is great. For webinars, I'm actually using this big fat Yeti microphone. I find the audio is a bit better.
Laptop, if you're using a laptop, that's what I'm using. I do have a headset, but the laptop mic works just as fine.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, a bit more echo with the laptop one. So yeah, I never used the build. I have a laptop as well with my docking station, but I rarely use that. I'm using my dock and my headset and this. So
yeah, and I use a headset because I'm already self-conscious about my voice. So having the echo in that from using a desktop microphone is not something I want to deal with.
Yeah, and quick question from Don: if you have, let's say, an existing Polycom phone or a speakerphone in your conference room, can that be used with ATA adapter? And the answer is yes.
Yes, it can.
It's actually the only way to do it. So
yeah.
Okay. We talked about web. We covered this one, the web meetings. Yep.
Well, we covered the video calls. Web meetings, there's an actual web conference style meeting similar to Zoom or Teams built into 3CX. Again, we found that if you're already using Zoom, you're not going to switch to using 3CX for your web meetings. But it is a functional system that allows you to have good meetings with polling and everything else. And you can send out links. So if people are using a web environment, so just a browser, a headset, and audio from their computer, it doesn't take up any of your concurrent licenses. It only takes up concurrent licenses when someone actually phones in to the meeting. So it's very versatile and very useful if you don't already have something like Zoom.
Okay.
So office hours by default on the 3CX system are 8 to 4. They can be altered in the settings for the primary office hours, and they can be altered for any DID specifically. So for example, if WIM's office hours were from 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, we could go into his DID and set specific hours for it, which gives people the flexibility of having different numbers for different times, or just simply not being available when they're out of the office. Like if you have a DID as a salesperson and you don't want to be called on Saturday or Sunday, you just set your out of office hours specifically for that.
Yep. And then there's some things you can do that, let's say for your regular business number is during business hours, it rings everyone's desk phone, but after hours, it goes to the menu with a greeting in the menu and a press 1 for voicemail or whatever. So, okay.
So Don, office hours aren't specifically linked to the wallboard. The queue system is linked to the wallboard, and queues can be linked to the office hours. So it's basically how your call logic is set up. 3CX integrates with a number of systems, Microsoft Office 365, Dynamics. As Lori asked earlier about the calendar, Office 365 integrations with 3CX can set that up for you. Other ones, if you use Zendesk or Freshdesk, Salesforce, there's plenty of options available. One of the best options, in my opinion, is being able to set 3CX as your default in Windows 10 for calls on the internet. I think that's actually the next slide.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to mention one integration we use is for caller ID. So when a call comes in, it will look at our ConnectWise system, our ticket system, and see, is this an existing customer? And even look at the contact and say, oh, if they're calling from their cell phone, let's show that person's name and not just like a generic British Columbia or what have you. So lots of options there.
Yeah, so click to dial is a wonderful thing if you've got something set up. If you don't, it's a pain in the butt. 3CX can be set as your default app for click to calls or click to dial. So if you're on the internet and you see a company phone number, you can click on it, your 3CX app will pop up and dial that number, which is really handy. So call quality and reliability with all VoIP systems is a matter of your internal network. If you have good internet, if you have a well-provisioned network with proper call quality, your system's going to sound great. If you don't, well, it's going to sound like crap.
Yep. Yeah. So this is internet's improved a lot, even the last couple of years with Talos Pure Fiber and Shaw upgrading the network. Before that, there were definitely issues that you could be uploading a big file online or downloading, or your backups are running, and then your calls are all garbled. So that's improved a lot, and obviously a good firewall helps for that. And actually, old traditional systems can have issues as well. We have a client where before they moved to 3CX, they were on an old system. Their phone lines actually had issues. They were degrading. That copper was bad on their TELUS phone lines. So they were. It was kind of like a 911 job to get them switched over. Okay. Is it hard to set up and manage?
So 3CX is really easy to install and set up. Like I said earlier, setting up extensions is a matter of a name and an email address, and if you're setting up physical phones, a MAC address for that phone. With about 30 minutes of training, you can probably do the basic help desk level management for your company, setting up extensions, setting up voicemail, installing the system is, well, from unboxing to having active phones on your desk is probably about a work day's worth of setup. So, installing and configuring, setting up the phones, dropping them on desks, having the inbound calls tested is about 8 hours, significantly less than most phone systems that I've worked with.
Yep. And then, sorry, you mentioned one acronym in there called a DID. What's a DID?
Oh, sorry. Direct inbound dial. So your phone number. So for example, for KTI 604-824-2770, that type of number is what's called a DID.
Yeah, just a 10-digit phone number. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of other technologies out there. Obviously, 3CX is not the only one. There's dozens of technologies. A popular one nowadays is Microsoft Teams, which is part of Office 365. They've got some phone system capability, but it's not in Canada. It's in the US. It definitely does things like video calls and chat and such. So there's some overlap. So if you're already using 365, it's worth looking at and testing. But really, at this point in Canada, it's not a ready-to-go thing. So Slack is great. We use it ourselves. We love our Slack for chatting within our teams. There's different channels and groups we use. We use it quite heavily for our work. And even with some clients, we talk through Slack as well. The video there is a video feature, but it's really, I would call it rudimentary. I've got annoyed because it dropped calls or the video keeps going, but you can't hear the other person. And that really annoyed me. So I wouldn't recommend, that's obviously, it's not a competitor with a 3CX phone system at all. Zoom is obviously very popular for Zoom meetings or video meetings and webinars. They do have a phone platform. We haven't tested that. It's something else. It's out there. So there's some overlap. Jive is something we used to deploy as well. They changed their pricing model. It doesn't make sense anymore. And there's actually there's dozens of systems in this online PBX category. It's called a cloud PBX, where you pay somebody a flat fee per extension and they take care of it. But it ends up being limited and can be challenges there. But some of them are really solid as well for what they have. But definitely 3CX has more functionality than any of those that I've seen. Then TELUS and Shaw have systems as well, like the Shaw Smart Voice. They'll typically rent you the phone, so you're paying a higher monthly fee. So it's very minimal upfront. You're not really paying a project or buying hardware. They'll charge you, let's say, $25 an extension forever. So in the short term, it can look cheaper, but over 3-4 years, you're better off to get a 3CX system. It's cheaper in the long run. So, and a lot more power in there. That's sort of my perspective on those different things. Again, there's overlap. They're worth looking at. But our team is trained on 3CX, so all our new technicians go through it. They're familiar with it. We can support it. Where something like a Jive or a TELUS system or Shaw system, we're less familiar with. So, yeah, we've decided to standardize on one for that. Anything else to add there, Daniel?
Not so much. You covered most of it. One of the things I like to mention regarding Shaw and TELUS, if you are buying your phones and stuff from them, it can get expensive. With 3CX, you don't actually need the physical hardware. The soft phones and a good headset result in really good call quality.
Yeah. So I think this is a good opportunity to answer the question from Tony. And he's offering dial tone to his customers, home users, and business. I think definitely for the business, the 3CX would be a great replacement. It's not really multi-tenant, but you could set up a individual small VM for each client. Like I think like 1 or 2 gigabytes of memory, and you'd be fine. Like we'll get into that a bit later on how it can be hosted, but just give them their own environment. They can have full administrator access. They can manage it themselves, and of course your support team can manage them. For managing, let's say, hundreds or thousands of home users, I don't think 3CX would be the best fit. It could do it, but you might be missing on some of the like provisioning and billing integration that you'd want for billing long distance, all of that. So, yeah. So happy to chat more sometime, Tony. It's been a while since we talked, so we can schedule that call. Okay, we've got the slide we had up front with the bigger picture, and this is showing how this would be deployed if you had it on premise. So this 3CX on-premise server on the right, it could be in the cloud as well. It doesn't need to be in your office. So it could be, just somewhere on a server online in a data center in Amazon. So we'll show that on the next picture. So here's some options. It could be in Azure, it could be on Google, it could be an Amazon Light Sale. That's like $5 a month for that hosting an Amazon Light Sale. And I've heard good reports on that. So, and then Amazon, of course, too. And then there's many other places where you can get a virtual private server for $10, $15, $20. Again, it doesn't need many resources. This is not heavy on video. It's not heavy on CPU. It's just voice calls. It's about reliability, but it's not computationally intensive. So yeah, it's quite flexible for deployments. It's which we love. And this is showing, okay, we've talked about the infrastructure. There's network, you need switches, and you need the software running, and you got your phones. But then how do you get your calls in and out? And that's with a SIP trunk. So you can get a SIP trunk from a number of providers. There's like ThinkTel, Shaw will do it. There's dozens or hundreds of those online. So there's a lot of competitive options. Basically, you're looking at the 3 things you're looking at is your cost per minute, how many concurrent calls you can run, and then your numbers. There's a lot of different models. It might be like cheap per month. It might only be $5 a month, but then you pay for every single minute, or it might be a flat fee per month, unlimited usage. You got to look at the plans and make sure it makes sense for your scale, or you're avoiding dial tones. You don't want your customers getting, busy signals, but still managing your cost. So that's a bit what's going on, and we help our clients navigate that and find the best solution. So what do we need for a good implementation? Again, this can really go badly, and I've heard of many ones that have gone badly where people are struggling with the cost or the reliability and dropped calls. So Daniel, what do we need for a good system?
So a VoIP-ready network means that you're not already pushing the bandwidth in your network, separating out the voice from the data traffic, either in a VLAN or if you're incredibly wealthy, a completely separate physical network. Making sure that you have a clear understanding of how your existing phone system works or how you'd like to change it when you implement the new phone system. How do you want calls to be received? Who's going to answer them? What's your after hours policy? Do you want people getting phone calls on their cell phone, etc.? Getting a SIP agreement in place is super important because you don't have a phone system with VoIP if you don't have SIP. But looking at what your needs are. You can't get one channel if you are expecting to get 5 or 6 simultaneous calls. Knowing what your average usage is before you go into the system. Standardizing on hardware is crucial. 3CX does not take a lot of hardware. In fact, they brag that they can be run on a Raspberry Pi. I don't recommend it. But we tend to go with a proper server with Intel processor, 2 gigs of RAM for every 4 concurrent callers, and that's overkill, but still relatively cheap. In the cloud environment, they recommend lower settings. And for example, if you set up a 3CX application in Amazon, they already have a built-in, what do they call them? Appliance that can be utilized. planning your transition is super important. Knowing when your cutover date is, knowing when you're going to move your numbers from your existing carrier to your new SIP carrier, and just being ready. And then, of course, training your people. For the most part, a phone system is a phone system is a phone system. Your average person will be able to pick up the phone the day that 3CX is installed and make a successful call. Learning some of the tricks and some of the extra features takes a little bit of time, and determining whether you want to manage the basic configurations. Do you want to set up extensions? Do you want to set up people's voicemail? Or do you want us or another provider to handle that? And making sure that you have the right training to do the amount of work that you want to do.
Yep, and that's some sort of gotchas I've seen in the past is trying to get 2, 3, 4 different types of phones, like an Astra and a Polycom and a Yalink. And yes, technically can be done, but it's more work on our side to make sure they work. And then for the users, they're confused because Joe can't talk to Jim and say, like, how do you transfer calls? It's different on my phone. I got different buttons. So you want a consistent experience so they can help each other. And then coming from an old system, there's sometimes things are different. Of users used to for 20 years transferring a call using Park. So you park the call and then you tell somebody grab the line on Park 1. And now we're saying, hey, we suggest using the transfer option. We can still do Parks, but we got to be clear on that so that there's no surprises to users and they're ready to go and they're not getting frustrated. So some of the things there. And good question from Don is around the infrastructure. And that topology is like, does each building, if you have multiple buildings or offices or stores, do they each need their own system? And the answer is no. Is you could have one system for multiple locations. You could have 15 or 100 locations all running from one server. And it could be across the country or across the world even. So
or alternatively, if you have multiple stores, you can also have multiple servers and you can link them together using bridges so that person in store A can phone person in store B by dialing one extra number on their extension. So.
Yeah, the neat thing there is you don't have to go through the receptionist at the other location. You can direct dial that extension. So saves time for your receptionist.
Yep.
Yeah, great question, Don. Okay, so what's it cost? I'll run through this one. So the software itself is free. There's up to 8 concurrent calls on a standard version. So you're missing some of the integrations there, like 365, but it provides a great experience, a ton of functionality for free, up to 8 concurrent calls. So if you want more calls, you'd pay, or if you want to go to upgrade from, you might only be on 4 concurrent calls, but you want more functionality, you'd pay for the upgrade to Pro. So it's a great way to get started, and then as you need more functionality, just pay a bit more. And then physical phones are optional. As Daniel mentioned, you could use the app on your smartphone or app on Windows or Mac. Works quite well. And we have quite a few of our staff using that because they don't want a bulky phone on their desk. They'd rather have an extra monitor on their computer than a phone that they never use.
Yep.
And now your SIP trunk is a monthly cost, and that depends on your usage requirements. So that could be as low as $20, $30 a month, or it could be hundreds depending on the size of your organization and how much you depend on phones. And then if you work with a consultant like us, I'll do upfront cost for the project maintenance and support, making sure it's monitored and patched and secured and keeping up to date with that. So those are the costs. Yeah, so that's the end of our slide deck. So maybe, Jonathan, can you take us through these next steps? You have a bit of echo.
Oh.
You have a lot of echo there.
Trouble? Still having trouble?
Should have got a headset.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead, and why don't you do
this
this slide? I think I'm having some mic issues, so I'm going to mute.
Yep. Yeah, so if you're not sure which direction to go in, I'm happy to provide some advice around what are these platforms, what are you doing, what's your use case? Are you more doing video? Are you more doing traditional phone systems? Is it more about within your team, or is it with clients, or both? And we can talk about that. If you're not on 3CX and you're interested based on what you learned today, reach out to Jonathan. He can get you quotes and information. So just Jonathan at Kirkhoff Tech. And if you are an existing client and you've seen, hey, realize maybe there's more value you can get out of your existing investment, you can work with a support team and around more features, whether it's the queues or wall boards or improving the voicemail or the call routing or office hours, lots of things there. So we're here to help. We've answered a lot of questions as we went along. If there's more questions, I'm happy to hang out here with Daniel and Jonathan and answer them. Yeah, thanks all for being here today. And look forward to talking about that. Or if you're still there online, maybe post your number one thing you learned today in the chat. I would love to hear that. What did you learn? Yeah, you're welcome, Laurie. You're welcome, Tony. I guess we explained it really well. We got no questions, so. Yes, definitely. I see with a number of our clients, they're using it as just a basic phone system that's capable of so much more. They're only using 10% of it. So, yes, Don, the recording will go out, and we can send the slide deck as well. And yeah, the integrations to Gmail and 365 are pretty strong, so it's definitely worth checking out.
Yep.
For contacts and your calendar. And yeah, the product is being actively maintained, so there's new versions of the mobile app coming out. There's some things that were kind of rough, maybe a year or 2 years ago, but they've got new updates on for iPhone and Android that are much better. Okay, no more questions, so we will.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tony, I saw your question about on a big telecom system. We'd have to do some research on that because I haven't looked at what that would look like for a carrier-grade system. So let's. I'll have Jonathan reach out to you, and we'll schedule a call. And good. All right, we are going to wrap this up. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you.